Good morning, everybody. We're going to get this workshop underway. Considering how rainy it is out there today, hopefully we can move right through. And appreciate everybody being here from staff that's here today. So we'll go down. 2 will be approval of the agenda. Changes, 2.1, changes to agenda and approval. And we do have one change, which will be item 9.7. And this is a deleted item, employee termination. Yes, and then section 3, recognitions. We do have a couple of recognitions on Monday night. 3.1, proclamation to designate March 2022 as National Theater in Our Schools Month. And then 3.2, proclamation to observe March 2022 as National Fine Arts Appreciation Month.
So are we going to have some students here for that, or how's that going to work, Mr. Superintendent?
So right now, I think the plan is we will have some of our employees that represent the different the categories of the arts. So we'll have some of them here. We have Mrs. Tucker, who is leading this for us. But as you know, in our county, the arts is something that is a source of pride. It's part of what we talk about being an A+ school district. You know, academics, arts, and athletics. So we are very excited and proud to honor these programs on Monday.
Great.
Well, and you know, speaking of National Theater Month, if you follow, a lot of the schools have their theater departments actually have their own Instagram and Facebook pages, so they're gearing up for their spring productions, and it's going to be great to be able to go. Me and Beth like to call them date nights, and we'll go try to hit as many as we can. So it's exciting to see some of the programs that are going to be happening this spring. So, all right, so visitors, 4, we have no visitors. 5, administrative personnel appointments, we have none. Item 6, public comment. Members of the public desiring to address the school board, Form MIS 5241, public input and or discussion of agenda items. And as of this time, we do not know. And then section 7, committee and staff reports. 7.1 is in-county travel paid for the period of February 10th through the 24th, 2022. 7.2, out-of-county travel paid for the period of February 10th through the 24th, 2022. And then 7.3, update on the APAGA performance audit issued August 28th, 2020.
Thank you, Mr. Bryant. And Mr. Horton's coming up, and I think we talked about this at a previous board meeting, and we want to take this time just to give an update to the board and to the public and where we are.
All right. Good morning.
Thank you, Mr. Bryant, Mr. Chambers. And so what we want to do today, I think Dr. Wright made the request a meeting or two ago, to update the board members and the public on the APAGA performance audit. So just as a reminder for all, the school district underwent an APAGA performance audit as required by statute prior to the half-cent sales surtax referendum being placed on the general election ballot back in November of 2020. APAGA, long acronym, Office of Program Policy Analysis and Government Accountability. It is a research arm of the Florida legislature. This performance audit was conducted by a Houston-based accounting firm remotely during the summer of 2020. And I think we mentioned at previous meetings that it was, for lack of a better word, a clumsy process. So we had a firm from outside of our state, not necessarily, and they're an accounting firm, aware of some of the pieces that we have in place in Okaloosa County and then in Florida in general. So it was a clumsy audit, performance audit from our standpoint, but nonetheless, the APAGA audit will remain on the district's website as required by statute for a minimum of 2 years. So it's there right now under our facilities and planning piece. I think it's also attached to the finance website.
Mr. Horton, real quick,
Yes.
you used the word clumsy. Okay, so was it because we were doing it remotely and not like, you know, because we were having to come out with?
Yes, sir. So,
okay.
so multiple meetings with multiple people. Zoom, I think in the summer of 2020 was a new endeavor for most of us. So we had folks from 4 or 5 different departments meeting with 6 or 7 different individuals on their side. So there are a lot of multiple repetitive type meetings and probably lacking some of the ability to sit across the table from somebody and have a conversation more in detail about certain things. All that said, I think clumsy was probably the best word that I could use in terms of the process.
Okay.
Well, may I follow up?
Yes,
Mr.
sir, of
Chairman?
course.
Were there some, let's use the word, educational opportunities that you guys had to use to inform the Texas group of Florida law or the way that Florida does business since they were from Texas?
That's a fair statement, Dr. White. And then even in Okaloosa County with our total program management program and our seat management program,
I
those
see.
were foreign
Right.
foreign entities, foreign ideas, and so
Not
explaining
something-
that.
right.
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 So that became the
So
challenge.
like anything from April 2020 up until probably today, the challenge of everything.
Yes,
So,
sir. Yes, sir.
okay, thank you.
The performance audit reviewed programs and areas expected to be impacted by the sales surtax. And so when they looked at the proposal for what the school district might do with those sales tax funds, that being primarily in the areas of construction and technology, and obviously impacting maintenance, and at that time, and I'll follow up in a minute, at that time, transportation, and then finance, communications also, because I think the messaging that what any district does when they implement a sales tax program is important. So they looked at all of those areas, did not look at curriculum because there was no direct link to the sales tax because we are using these funds strictly for capital improvements. I do want to indicate and show you at the bottom of this particular screen, you know as a board, and if you've been in education for a long enough time, that when a performance audit is done, whether it's from an outside of the state entity or the auditor general, I don't know of an individual case where an audit group has come away and had absolutely zero recommendations. And so obviously in this case, when they left us, they came back with some recommendations. I think it's important from probably their perspective to say something when you leave. Now, they reviewed these 6 areas across maintenance, transportation, facilities planning, finance, under the category of debt service. And so there were 26 indicators in these 6 areas across those different entities within the school district. And so I want to make sure the board is aware, and we stated this back at the time, the number of indicators that were identified as not met was 0, all right? So the indicators in these areas garnered either a met or partially met document. So it's very important that when they left us, they gave us a recommendation and essentially said, based upon the procedures performed and the results obtained, the audit objectives have been met. They conclude that, with the exception of findings discussed in the report, and as we're going to address today, and those are findings that come across, and we reviewed some of the other APAGA audits from other districts, and so it's commonplace to have some recommendations. They categorize them as recommendations. The departments that expend sales surtax funds have sufficient policies, procedures in place, supported by appropriate documentation, reports, monitoring tools, and personnel to address the statutory criteria in 212.055, which is the sales surtax statute. Okay.
Mr. Horton, real quick.
Yes.
So, of course, by performing these audits, you're talking about there's going to be findings. Well, exactly. That's why we perform the audits, to help us improve. And by using an outside group that, from Texas, was definitely showing that we used a neutral group to give us honest feedback. And so I agree with what you're saying. There's always going to be findings, but the findings are to just help us be better stewards.
Exactly. And I think if it had been a firm in Florida that was more familiar with Florida and what happens in the state, that might have been a less clumsy performance audit process. I use Alachua County as an example. They were undergoing a sales surtax referendum a little bit before Okaloosa. I think they had a firm out of Tampa. The inner workings of what happened there and some of the things that the auditor said were a little different than what came out of Okaloosa's.
Right.
And in terms of even looking at completely different things. So if they were looking at communications, they might have focused only on public records requests when they did their audit there, and they didn't look at public records requests at all in Okaloosa County. So just a little bit of a difference in how it was approached. So what I want to do now is kind of go through the performance audit recommendations and give you an update as to where we are on those. So the first one talks about economy, efficiency, and effectiveness of the program. And they focused on, because we were in the process of putting in some standards, performance standards in our maintenance area particularly. Mr. Bolton and I would sit down monthly and look at the work order process. We'd look at 90 days and over work orders. We'd look at the average amount of time that a work order was outstanding. So those sorts of things is what APAGA was looking for. It's just that we didn't have it in writing that we were doing it, so we produced them. This is the monthly process we're going through. So now that Mr. Meyer has moved into that role, they've put a process in place by where they look at work orders and track that in a way that identifies some performance measures for us. So I'll give you an example. And you know seasonally, if you're in a school, that your work order count might be high in a certain time of the year. It might be lower at a different time of the year. And so we're not looking at that so much as year to year. So where are we in our performance, January of this year compared to January the previous year? And are we doing better from a metric standpoint of the number of work orders, the outstanding time, the 90-day plus work orders? So that has been addressed in that process. And there's a mention here about transportation. I'll come back to that in just a little bit if I could. And please stop me at any time on these questions. The second recommendation said to document and track critical bleacher conditions to ensure they are repaired and maintain a record of the repairs. So all that was being done, and as you can imagine, through the Etheridge Stadium project, which this is not directly speaking to, all of that was done through engineers and contracted out work. And so at the end of the day, for this particular performance audit, we have the engineer who did the original inspection, wrote up the original default or defects, and then the work gets contracted out to be done. That engineer comes back around and reviews the work done and signs off on it. And so that's really that sign-off piece, an actual signature on the completion of the work satisfactorily is what's been done to address that particular recommendation. And I wouldn't want, I'm sorry.
If I can go back to 1.2 real quick, and I just want to compliment how maintenance has definitely made huge strides this year. Talking to principals in District 4, I'm hearing more positive feedback that things are getting done in a more timely manner, that there's a lot more communication, and also by saying that we're addressing that, I think we've hit on some key pieces there, and that's the communication part and the getting the work completed in a more timely manner. So I will compliment our maintenance department and
yes, sir.
saying thank you for that.
And I'll pass that compliment along to Mr.
Well, they're
Meyer
here, so
and
they
the
heard
group,
it.
and Mr. Bolton. So that is, and I hope hopefully they'll agree that that's something we've emphasized this year and stressed is communication.
Yes.
So there's more of that going on, and communication is a great thing, but if you don't have the resources to fix the problems that are in our schools, then it becomes just talk. And so the other piece to that, Mr. Bryan, as the board knows, is the ability this year, beginning with the half-cent sales tax and the flexibility that those funds have given us to address other capital problems, issues within the schools, allow us to put our money where our mouths are when we say we can fix something. So when we see $2 to $3 million of chillers and boilers going into schools this year, and that eliminates lots of problems when you look at the roof work that's being done. So they've been able to, in years in the past maybe where they haven't been able to, get the resources on site to do the work. So that's important.
Well, and I appreciate talking about the big projects. So I'm talking about the everyday small projects that
Yes.
are getting done in a timely manner. And I understand that, Mr. Grant, I know we talked about this, and you had groups that went out at the beginning and worked in teams to get things caught up on the little things. So that made a huge difference. So
Yes,
thank
sir.
you.
Yes, sir. I didn't skip a page, did I? Okay. So one of the things that they want all school districts to do is identify sources of comparative data and develop key performance indicators internally to evaluate facility, transportation, technology, program performance, and cost. So I've marked this as ongoing right now. There are resources out there, and one of them that I've listed that I've been reviewing is key performance indicator literature from what's called the Council of Great City Schools Performance Measurement and Benchmarking Project. That council is 75 large urban districts. So I think what we have to do when we review these documents and try to bring them into a county like Okaloosa is understand the differences that exist. But from those things, we can pull some key performance indicators that we begin to study and track. And so I will say that process is ongoing. but it allows us to put some things in place like we've done with the maintenance program. Average number of days. When we start looking at efficiency, cost per student enrollment or cost per square foot, and track those indicators over time to make sure that we have developed methodologies to be more and more efficient. And so those are some resources out there we're reviewing. I don't have all of those done, but it's an ongoing process. The 1.6 is develop a methodology to determine the reasonableness of project costs associated with information services projects administered by the seat management contractor. So this one I've marked as addressed right now because I think it's one of those clumsy communication issues that we could never quite get the Houston-based firm to understand. So obviously our seat management contract is something that goes through an RFP, and the board approves that company, and within that contract there are approved pricing for devices, for service, for other things, and so that's a negotiated cost. Whenever Teleforce or CACI goes out into the market to do anything on our behalf, they either are using a state bid list, which is a state approved pricing, or something below that. And so they are not able to come to us and say, I'm going to charge you all this extra for this device or all this extra for this contracted hourly rate, because it's all determined in that contract. So the concept, and again, I think we're still relatively unique in Florida, that we have a firm that handles all of our technology needs, I think was foreign to the company from the standpoint. So the piece of this that talks about reasonableness of project cost, I think is addressed in the fact that they're bound to operate under state bid contract or below when it comes to pricing for the school district.
And that's an important point, in my opinion, that they have to comply with that state contract.
Right. And the contract that the board has approved for service.
That's right.
Okay. This particular set of recommendations, goals, objectives, and performance measures used by the program to monitor and report program accomplishments. So documenting department goals and objectives that are clearly stated and can be achieved within budget. Ensure goals are consistent with the school district's strategic plan and consider strategic priorities, performance indicators, and measures. So this, as you've noticed on 4.2, I said connected to 1.5. And so two things that are happening here that have us marking this as ongoing is the strategic plan for the district is just being revised this year. And so it's appropriate for us to make sure that we continue to work on these particular recommendations in alignment with that strategic plan that's just getting ready to come forward. And so I'll go back to 4.1 and talk about the performance indicators that we put in place for maintenance, but also thinking about the task orders that Jacobs Titan undertakes at your request for providing service to the district in the form of construction or other projects, and those are timed out, they are priced and bound by a guaranteed maximum price, which is a performance indicator, and also the district is responsible, not responsible, but is the recipient of shared savings under those projects. So all these pieces as it relates to total program management and seat management, I think we're a little foreign to the firm as we try to explain those remotely to them. But I would mark those as ongoing due to the fact that our strategic plan is being updated right now. The 4.3 asks about strengthening internal controls by developing comprehensive department policies and procedures manuals to support program goals and objectives. So the first one, I've got Dr. Smith. Scott A. Okay, so this is what we've got for our facilities maintenance department procedures manual. In that, we'll be putting our objectives regarding maintenance and timelines and things like that. So he's working on that constantly, and as you know, he hasn't been busy at all the last year with the sales tax piece. So he's done a great job with helping get this piece. And this was in place when they came in summer of 2020, but it probably could use a revision, and so he's been doing that. So that's being addressed through that process. Now, the second part there says that in addition, maintain minutes from monthly construction program meetings. And so what I would say, and we responded to that group at the time, is that yes, those construction program meetings meet monthly. We have an agenda for those. And what's important about that is it's a work group within the district. And so typically, whether the curriculum department has a meeting or something, we don't hold minutes of those work group meetings, nor are we required to by statute. The second piece of that is Dr. Kelly comes to the school board in front of the school board members and the public and updates the board and the public on every item that is occurring in those construction program meetings. So de facto, all of that is now part of the public record in terms of what's happening in that construction meeting. So I believe that's been addressed clearly.
While you were talking, Mr. Horton, it came to my mind that there are so many means for our audiences and our communities to see, to provide input, and to be made aware of our strategic plan, our fish reports, our construction meetings, our sales tax citizens oversight committee group, and all of those reports are read into our minutes, which then can be accessed via the website, as can all of our construction projects and the updates on the new tabs that are now on the website. So when you were talking, I was just thinking, click, click, click. We have so many things that make that very 4.1 and some of the others you've already addressed so relevant and so transparent to our communities.
Yes, ma'am.
Good point.
So these recommendations related to facilities planning, and it says prepare program performance data for all major projects and make it accessible to the public. So to your point, Dr. Kelly, the capital program dashboard is up and has been running since the implementation of the sales surtax, and it will show performance data in terms of timelines, budget items, what's been done, where we are in the process. In addition, the Citizens Oversight Committee information is all posted on that site, which identifies all of those minutes and everything that's happened there. So I think that is the one-stop shop for folks who want to see related to this particular program, which is the sales surtax program, all of those indicators there. 5.5, I had an interesting conversation. Ms. Debbie Buchanan, of course, is our webmaster, and this was prior to Hillary becoming in as a media person. Interesting couple of Zooms about establishing and implementing a formal procedure to ensure timely actions are taken to correct erroneous and/or incomplete data in the public domain. So we're talking about websites, Facebook, social media, those sorts of things. So when I was asked the question as that person who was overall media, how do you correct, what's your process for correcting erroneous information? I said, well, I'll send an email to Debbie Buchanan and we'll have an email trail that it's been corrected if there's something out there that's not accurate, and or if something's on a school site, we'll address that. So what auditors want sometimes is they want something in writing. So we provided our principals and our staff with procedures for correcting erroneous information, which essentially in writing say, at the school level, the principal or the designee is in charge of that information. If someone from the public brings something to them that says, hey, this is wrong on your website, or this is dated, then it'll be corrected. At the district level, it will still come through me. But it was something that I think that from a recommendation standpoint, it was, again, something we were doing. They wanted to see a piece of paper that said, here are the procedures. So we just codified those, not as policy, but just as procedure.
Okay, so part of the procedure with reviewing web pages, for instance, for schools, what is the process for the principal? Are they to review their website? Is there a time frame that they should be reviewing it?
So in that document, there's not a time frame listed, but we'll have communication with them that it should be kind of a regular, ongoing piece, because as you know, when you get a website and there's a web page out there, sometimes you can eliminate the link that takes you to that website, but if you just do a search, it still might pop out because it's kind of out there unconnected to anything. And so being able to kind of find those trails and get those things deleted completely, Deb Buchanan does a good job of that. It is one of those unpaid jobs to keep up with the website and all that information on there, but the expectation would be that it's kind of a regular review of that process, and I know we'll see. I'll go out and be sitting at home and looking somewhere, and I'll find down a trail and find something. Oh wait, this is no longer accurate. So we got to fix that. But it's exponentially growing in terms of all the pages that are out there, and everything that's put out for the public to review. So it takes it's a large effort to keep it updated.
So Debbie Buchanan, can she go into every school website and let's say a document like student code of conduct or people progression plan that we know we change yearly? Can she go in, if she sees a school that has an update, can she go in and just do that on her own?
So she actually runs, I think, the websites of 4 schools because there's no one at the school that will do that right now. Most of the times with those kind of documents, Ms. Gardner, what we advise is the school page linked to the district site where that's housed. That way, when the district updates it, it's updated automatically for them. But she can and does do reviews of websites to see if there's anything out there that can be adjusted. And again, we absolutely, when the public sees something out there, if a parent's on a site and says this doesn't seem right, please notify the school because it is an ongoing process. And it's a challenge to keep that all up to date. It's a challenge. Mr. McGinnis already addressed with the board 6.2, which is about implementing a board policy to review all policies on a cycle, so that's been established. 6.3 is a financial recommendation, and I've talked with Ms. Perry, and again, the principal's required to sign every purchase order that comes across their desk and also invoices that are associated. So there was not anything that we saw here that required us to make a change in our process.
We send the purchase orders and then any invoices for the purchasing card. So everything is sent.
So, and again, I'll say to that, and just kind of as a cap to the discussion to this point, the Auditor General was in our county, I think the year after the performance auditors were there. And so I think you just heard in a recent board meeting that the Auditor General and that report went very well for the district overall. And not that they're always looking at the exact same things, but certainly anything that was a red flag to the Auditor General would have been brought up. So in this case, some of these recommendations do not appear within the Auditor General's recommendations or findings. And again, so we could take that for what it's worth.
And
Mr.
just as a
Horton.
reminder, that Auditor General audit, there were 0 findings.
Right.
And could we just also go back and highlight the fact that Okaloosa County Schools, as a district, has been an A+ school district since the inception of grading schools. And one component of that school grade and district grade is to have a clean financial audit. And so we could not maintain our standing as an A+ district without that.
Yes, ma'am, the academically high-performing district designation. And that is no material findings or weaknesses in the annual financial audit. So,
And just one point, and of course you know this, the Auditor General is from Florida, not Texas.
well, and so I think my hopeful takeaway from today is the recommendations that are here, we are addressing them, we are looking at them in some places where we feel like the communication was clumsy, and we believe we're doing exactly what the recommendation's asking us to do. We're moving forward.
Yep.
Now, I do have a note for you. So, and board members, we talked about this back early on last year. The transportation program was reviewed by the APAGA auditors due to the fact, and really only due to the fact, that the school buses purchases were part of the proposed sales surtax program. And so what happened, remember, and just remind the public, is following the approval of the referendum, another superintendent in school district in Florida notified us that the Auditor General had a finding for their district that they purchased school buses using sales tax proceeds. And that, by the Auditor General's review, was a finding. And so that district had to repay their sales surtax proceed bucket of money from their capital 1.5 mil. And so that superintendent gave us a heads up that the Auditor General was finding this. We did some research into it the best that we could, and of course the Auditor General doesn't write statute, and so they interpreted the statute. So what that meant was we are not, as a school district, using sales tax proceeds to purchase school buses. And we've said that at multiple meetings, but we are continuing with the bus refresh cycle because of that flexibility that this sales tax program has given us. So now we have more capital budget money available to purchase school buses. So I say all that to say that when transportation is mentioned throughout the recommendation, we are taking that under advisement. There are things like looking at the cost of an aging bus fleet, and what will happen when we implement new buses into our system. And so we'll still be reviewing those recommendations and acting on those if we believe, now that they're outside the scope of the sales surtax program, we can benefit from any changes there.
And I know that you're not in charge of transportation, but we initially got those 40 buses, and then we have another group coming. Is that right? Am I right on that?
So Mr. Chambers may update the board on that in his comments
Oh,
today.
okay.
I'm not saying there's one out front
Sorry,
pulled up.
I didn't mean to steal your thunder on the
That's all right.
buses.
But we can still answer the question right now.
We
There's
can.
about 20 new school buses that are coming. I think 17 are on the way by the end of this month. Ironically, there's a delay because the individuals who are building the bus can't find drivers to drive the buses to us.
Imagine that.
Now, we wouldn't be putting these buses in circulation this spring. It takes a while to get them retrofitted and get everything on them. So, you know, my first thought of getting 20 of our drivers on a big bus and going down and getting them and bringing them back, we're probably better off just waiting for them to arrive.
Well, and 60 buses in 2 years compared to how many buses over the last 30 years? It's huge, huge.
Yeah, we'll continue with that bus refresh plan into the next year's capital budget as well. So we'll work to continue to update our fleet there.
Yeah, I don't see I'm sure my fellow board members look at those numbers on there to make sure there's no 90s and zero
Oh, you can
sevens
see
or
the new
lower.
ones coming. They're a different
yeah.
Oh,
kind
yeah.
of yellow.
There's plenty of
Yes, sir.
reflectors on them.
So I'll kind of wrap up at that point. I don't want to take too much of your time this morning. But know that the staff is working hard to take the recommendations seriously and to implement those in ways that can better the district. And I'll open up the questions or comments if you have any.
Well, just to say, I'm very grateful that you put all this together and reported back to us where we are with this, and it's very, very helpful. Thank
Yes,
you.
sir. Yes, sir.
Do you have this in like a one-pager or something that we could have?
I can convert all this. Of course, this is out in the website. It's
Okay,
there available.
that's okay. Yeah,
Yes, ma'am.
that's
It's a
fine.
PowerPoint, about 5 or 6
All right,
slides.
so we're going to post it on Okaloosa Schools?
We'll post it on our
Awesome.
where we need to put it. Yep. We'll put it on the capital program dashboard as well.
Very good.
Thank you. That's rain.
Okay. Is that all?
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so now we'll move down to Section 8 in the consent agenda. 8.1 will be the approval of the consent agenda. Again, board members, anything moving downwards, just stop me if you have any questions or comments. 8.2, approval of the minutes of the special meeting of February 24th, 2022, minutes of workshop meeting of February 24th, 2022, meetings of regular meeting of February 28th, 2022. 8.3, appropriation of District 4 school board member capital outlay funds to Crestview High School for a marquee sign in the amount of $10,000 presented by myself. And I will just comment that we do have a community group that's actually going to help with some more of the funding of this sign out there. So really excited, and I'm sure that will be listed in the donations from the community. So just wanted to thank Destiny Church for their support out there. 8.4, invoices to be approved for payment presented by our interim Chief Financial Officer, Ms. Julie Perry. And 8.5 is school donations. 8.6, payroll calendars for 2022 through 2023.
Can I make a comment there, please?
Of course.
Ms. Perry, I was looking through those calendars, and I know you've made a lot of people happy, and I know it's a lot of work on your part, but I see where it was put in that everyone's getting paid before Thanksgiving. And I know every year it's, do we, can we, do, you know, and now it's on their official thank you, because that is, I know that's extra work to get that quickly, to go from the October pay to mid-November. But as we all know, on that holiday, people shop,
Black Friday.
yep, and all that,
Yes.
so
And-
appreciate that.
And we did put that in at the request of Mr. Chambers.
Thank you, Mr. Chambers, I think
And-
that's
And
good.
he also had another idea that we put on the calendar, in that he knows that there's such a long wait between that December check and then
Yes,
the
January.
January.
Right.
So he asked us to move the January up a week to just try to kind of
Yep.
make it a little bit.
And because
even
February is a
to
small month.
distribute that a little bit better.
That's a
That's
good idea.
awesome, thank you for that.
Because
That's great.
You hear of teachers or any employee come January, it's like they're like crawling to the finish line to, with the last little dollars they might have there, so. All right, thank you, Ms. Perry. All right, 8.7, tag on bid purchase over $25,000, Howard Technology Solutions, Title I. 8.8, tag on bid purchase over $25,000, Howard Technology, Bruner Middle School. 8.9, tag on bid ITB SDOC 22-B-077-KP, large kitchen equipment catalog discount bid. 8.10, exempted purchase over $25,000, Continental Press Incorporated. 8.11, exempted purchase over $25,000, Scholastic Incorporated. 8.12, self-help project, construct a new marquee sign at Crestview High School.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
I want to ask Dr. Smith a question, not so much about exactly that project, but I want to make sure it's clear and clear to the public what we are doing when we use, there's a couple on here, self-help projects at schools. Can you explain what that means?
The basic guidelines are basically there in board policy. It's a project where it's self-funded, usually through the community or some other source other than the school board, and run by either a party inside the school or an entity outside the school, like a PTO or a band parents or things like that.
But some of the money could come from, say, a board member who would like to put some money towards that, or several board members, or whatever it was, right?
The best, yes, correct. The best example of that is the Ram Tennis Center at Ruckle.
Yeah.
A lot of that money the vast majority of that money was raised independently of the school district, but some of it came from board members and other individuals inside the school district.
Is there any kind of formula, like at 50% has to be private? There's nothing like that, right?
No, it's
Okay.
just on a case-by-case basis.
Okay,
But
thank
you
you.
do have strict guidelines that these
There are strict
organizations have
guidelines
to-
in the
yeah.
board policy on how it's got to be done. All the money has to be raised up front. A legitimate budget has to be put together. A plan has to be in place to get the project done and finished within the money that they have, and they have to have the money in the bank, in finance, before I bring it to the board for it to be approved.
Okay,
And on this case here, there was actually 3 funding strips. So
that's
you
correct.
had the main one, which was the church, and then myself, and then the school contributed
That's
the last
correct.
little bit, so.
That's correct.
thank you.
Thank you. 8.13, sale and disposal of real property, Fish Parcel 69, parcel ID 05-59-22-0000-0021-0000. Request for a spot survey. And 8.14 is sale and disposal of real property, Fish Parcel 76. And in the spirit of time, you can see the parcel ID number right there. And 8.15, sale and disposal of surplus property. 8.16, request permission to apply for the IDEA Part B K through 12 entitlement flow through American Rescue Plan, ARP, allocations grant, and IDEA Part B preschool entitlement flow through American Rescue Plan, ARP, allocations grant.
That's a lot of money in that grant, like almost $1.7 million. That's going to cover a
huge.
lot of great things, isn't it?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and that is it for Section 8. So now we'll move down to Section 9, Superintendent's Human Resource Recommendations. 9.1 and 9.2 are for today only, employees on administrative leave, and 9.2, deferred retirement option program drop. 9.3, out-of-field report for the 2021 through 2022 school year. 9.4, employee separations. 9.5, personnel recommendations. 9.6, employee transfers. And 9.7 was deleted. 9.8, employee suspension. And 9.9, leave without pay. Item 10 is discussion agenda, and at this time, no items have been moved from the consent agenda, but that could change at any time before our meeting Monday. So 11 is construction program owners representatives business, and Dr. Kelly, we will turn it over to you.
And we will have our meeting in March on Monday, bright and early, 9 o'clock, I think, at 9:30, I'm sorry. And so that means that after that meeting, I can bring to you Monday night during our formal school board meeting a report.
Yes,
And I
ma'am.
know it will be exciting.
Yes, as always, look forward to it. Item 12, information technology seat management contract, nothing there. And item 13, attorney's business, Mr. McInnes, I will turn it over to you.
No report this morning.
All right, thank you. And section 14, superintendent's business, 14.1, out-of-state student trip request. And I will just tell you that yesterday, and I'll get to this in my comments, but just to see the faces on the kids being able to go on a field trip, just to the convention, the convention center down on the island, was just great to see all those kids out there and having a good time. So it's great to see them getting out again. So.
Absolutely.
And so 14.2, Mr. Chambers, I will turn it over to you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Bryant. School Board, I do want to provide you just a few updates. And as I go through this and go from one topic to the next, feel free to stop me, ask questions, clarify, and I'll be more than happy to do so. First of all, I do want to let you know that as we speak, we are hosting the DODEA Southeast Regional Conference over at the Doolittle Institute. And this is comprised of about 7 different states that are a part of this. And as you know, the DODEA grant is a grant that we apply for. We have several of them, and it deals with our military students. And schools that have at least 10% of their population military, you have the ability to utilize these funds. In Okaloosa County, we focus on math and science, grades 6 through 8, but then we also focus on biology, chemistry, algebra 2 as well. And there's a strong STEM focus that is involved in these DODEA grants. So that's something that we're excited about. Engagement is something that is also a part of this DODEA grant. There's a lot of technology that's been purchased to help these teachers and help, most importantly, these students. So this conference is going on right now. It's hosted in Miami sometimes and other parts of the country. So we have Tammy Ellis and Mrs. Thedford who are leading this. There's a strong connection, obviously, with our military bases. Miss Elaine Lazanesh, our military liaison with Eglin, is there. We have a Mr. Mitchell, who's a strong connection with us, who works over at Eglin as well. So just a great event that's going on. Just want the community to understand that. Also, I'm just going to mention this briefly because I know that Dr. Kelly will mention this in her remarks. I'll just say last week was an excellent week. We had Hope Week, where we had the founder of Hope Squad here. A lot of different activities, but I'm sure you will address some of those, so I'll leave that to you. We've talked about before, we have a Youth Leadership Council. And so we have at every high school, we have a junior and a senior that's involved in this Youth Leadership Council. And it's a combination of these students who are working to say, how can we do things even better in the school district, but also for Okaloosa County just in general. So there's a partnership with myself and Mr. Horton with Commissioner Ponder, and these students meet routinely. On April 11th, I'm going to invite these students to come to the board, and they're going to present their recommendations of what they would like to see happen in Okaloosa. And I'll just give you just a little bit of a sneak peek. One, they want to ensure that financial literacy is something that's implemented in Okaloosa schools. And this is actually, I think, in statute to not happen next year, but happen the year after that in statute. So we'll actually be ahead of that. So these students are kind of passionate about that. And then the second thing that they'll be bringing forward is suicide prevention. And we know with Hope Squad what we have, and Dr. Kelly will share a little bit of that, I'm sure, in a moment. But I'm very proud that these students have recognized this. At the end of this year, every secondary school will be a part of Hope Squad. And at the end of next year, every elementary will as well. So very excited. April 11th, these students will be coming forward and sharing also the journey that they've been on over the last year. As we go into the next school year, The same juniors will carry forward, but then we'll pick up another set of juniors, rising juniors for next year as well. So very proud of this group. You will be very impressed of the caliber of students when they come before you and present.
And I just want to throw in there for my Baker School, the chair of that group is Miss Stella Hurley, who's a Baker student.
She
So I'm
is.
very proud of that. And one thing on you talked about the suicide prevention, but also in mental health, it's not always the extreme of the suicide, but sometimes it's just kids are struggling, like we all do. And I'm eager to hear what they have to say about that. Like maybe it's just a student that their grades are sliding. It's just they're having trouble, balancing everything like we all do in life and trying to do that. And it's harder when you're a teenager. So mental health not only is suicide prevention to the extreme, which we hope they don't get there, but just day to day, how do you, like we all feel overwhelmed, how do you handle everything and all
Home
those
life.
things?
Their home life. I
Yeah,
would
their
say,
home
just-
life
Yes.
and just the challenges. Many of these students take advanced courses. There's a lot of work on them. Some of them have jobs. I mean, it's just so many things. So working with those students to make sure that mental health covers the whole span of struggles that students will have, not just and as particularly in the teenage group, they don't want to admit that they don't have it all together, because that's what they want to portray. So I'm glad that this council is working to help that.
Absolutely.
Is that it?
A few more things.
Okay.
So I think we all know the Florida legislative session is still going. It was supposed to end, I believe, last Friday. Still going. There might be some conversations that are happening budget-wise, but we know once they do close, there's a 72-hour cooling off period where they'll wait before the things go to the governor. So we are eagerly awaiting. There's a number of bills that definitely can impact public education, and of course, Ms. Perry is very interested in the final numbers so we can get to the part of creating our budget for the upcoming school year. And with that transition, we are still in the process right now, currently, of creating our district department budgets. So that's going on right now. Those will be submitted to Ms. Perry soon. And Mr. Horton has already started the process of working with each of the principals of those teacher allocations. And as we do every year, a very conservative approach is occurring, but he literally sits down or Zooms with every principal, looking at their allocations from last year to this year. What might we need for this upcoming school year? And again, keeping class size in mind, but taking a conservative approach, because as we all know, that's where the dollars go. So we have to be very mindful of that. Quick update on ESSER 3, which it seems like we're just doing updates every single board meeting. But what we do know right now is it looks like 2 districts have been awarded their ESSER 3 dollars. We submitted ours on the very first day that we were able to, so we're very hopeful that we will be receiving word hopefully this week. I keep asking Mrs. Dale literally every day. She gives me that nice smile every time that not yet, but I'm hoping she's going to have something for me here very soon.
Well, I will just say, Mr. Chambers, I appreciate you sending the email out to everybody, because I know each of us get asked every time we go into school. But by sending out that communication, I think that kind of put everything out there so people know how the process is working. So, and I do appreciate that. I'm sure my
did
fellow
help.
board members.
Good, I'm glad.
Yep.
And just 2 other quick updates. We all know that we're still going through the focus transition. I do want to just say that the MIS department under Mr. Horton, Mr. Mitchell, I could go on and on, they have done an extraordinary job in this transition. There's so many different people that have to be communicated with. Just as a reminder, this is going to a new student platform, a new human resources platform, and a new finance platform. Right now, kindergarten students and new students are enrolling in Focus. We have about 500 students who've already been enrolled through Focus. Any student who's with us, they'll just automatically roll into Focus. The registrars are all being trained, or they've been trained. Mr. Horton gave the principals a preview yesterday as well. Our master schedulers are going to be trained this month. Mr. Horton and his group are putting out videos so teachers can just be more acclimated to it, because what we do not want is them to come back during pre-planning and have to figure out grade book and all of that stuff. So there'll be things on the front side, and then we'll also have things during the summer and pre-planning as well. So it's a very methodically laid out plan, and I just appreciate the work that they've done. And then just lastly, capital projects, we know with the COP, we know that that's already been awarded, but we did put out for bid the multi-purpose buildings. So we do have a local company, Lord & Son, who right now it looks like they will end up getting that bid. No contracts have been signed, but it looks like they will end up getting that bid. So going local, I think, is a good thing, but the bottom line is we put that process out there and anyone's able to bid, and then we look at those costs. So also the cafetoriums and the classroom additions, we'll be putting those bids out soon as well. And then just the final recap, our single point of entry, 3 to 4 years ahead of schedule, and those should be done this upcoming summer. And Mr. Horton already kind of mentioned, a little bit of the flexibility of the capital dollars with the half-cent sales tax that's out there, but we are working with principals and saying, hey, what do you need? Not what do you want, what do you need for us to really look at your schools? So in the capital world, there's a whole lot going on, as Dr. Kelly, I'm sure will share a little bit more on Monday.
Yes.
And that's all I have.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chambers. And so now we'll move down to board members' announcements and requests for information. And we're going to start with Dr. Kelly, because I know she's got a lot of great things to talk about. So.
I do, and as things were unfolding today, another thing went through my head, so I'll just acknowledge it. So, when you've worked in and around a school district for 4 decades or more, as I have, you're so innately aware of the processes and the systems that we have in place here that work so beautifully together and that help us all be mindful of the things that happen every day in our schools. But because you have that all in your history, you don't recognize day to day some of the things that take place. So I just wanted to take 1 second and thank all the district staff for giving all of us a call sometime before we get to the workshop situation, and certainly before we get to the Monday night voting situation, so that behind the scenes we are given opportunity to question you, to ask for more evidence or more information, to get any qualms that we have worked out of the way before we get in the public venue and we sit here and we're able to just roll on very smoothly. So it might appear to some members of the public that we haven't had that opportunity, but we most certainly have had everybody remotely related to an agenda item on our workshops and our board meetings. We've all had an opportunity to vet with everybody that's touched these items in advance. So it just sparked my ideas this morning. I wanted to send that thank you out to all of you. And thank you for allowing us to call any member of your staff and or the attorney at any time should we have a question prior to our getting here on a workshop morning or on a voting evening meeting. So thank you. But now back to my regularly scheduled announcements, our board chair. So I was going to say, and it's so true, I personally, as well as professionally, just had a phenomenal week getting to know Dr. and Mrs. Hudnall, who Dr. Greg Hudnall, as you know, is the founder of the Hope Squad, getting to know them and the program in a deeper way. As I was the courier, and that's kind of scary, but I was the driver as we traversed a 3-county area. We had community meetings, we had school meetings, we had meetings with dignitaries and with donors and with VIPs across these 3-county areas. We met at schools, and I wanted to give a shout out to our school principals who hosted us. Crestview High School, Jay Sanders and Dr. Dunn, and the rest of that administrative staff, Ms. LaVictor, and their supporters. And at Choctaw, Mrs. Heck and Brandon McDonald, and at Niceville to Charlie Morello. All of them, sometimes on the spur of the moment, changed plans with us and for us, and we could not have had that amazing a week without them. But another exciting thing for me was not only hearing from the students about how the program has changed their world and we know has already saved lives in our schools, but hearing from the adults and hearing from other school districts who have the program or who want the program, and even at Pensacola State College, people wanting the program. So this is a program, and I should say also with members of the military, requesting that we write a program to meet their needs, because suicide intervention has now become very meaningful to that group as well. So it really invigorated me and made me even more passionate about how vital and how important this program is, specifically and particularly on the heels of the last 2.5 years that our students have faced dealing with COVID and all the fallout of that. I just think that it couldn't be more timely, and I'm so proud of our district for being on the forefront in Florida, for getting that embedded in our schools and being an example to the school districts around us. And then we culminated on Saturday with the Youth Leadership Program at Niceville High School, and I think we had between 75 and 100 students there, some even from Navarre High School, who's the first school in Santa Rosa County to get the program up. And to hear those students stand up and explain to other students situations that they've been in, whether it was bullying, harassment, the stress of being a student athlete, academic person, having all that on them, on their lives, and what this program means to me, that was just phenomenal. So I'm truly proud of our district, our students, and our teacher advisors who, on top of their day-to-day lesson planning and what they do at their schools, have stepped up to be the advisors of these programs. So I'm so excited. I'm looking forward to tonight's Honoring Educators reception, sponsored by Niceville's Chamber. That's always an enjoyable event. And I'm looking forward to attending our Ballet Academy's performance of Beauty and the Beast. And looking forward to emceeing the Twin Cities Honor Choir's 23rd annual performance Thursday night at Rocky Bayou Baptist Church at 7 p.m. So if you don't have a date night at 7 p.m., you can come hear that. And finally, I'll say that as of today, there are only 9 days, 6 work days, until spring break. Yay! That's all I have, Mr.
All right.
Chair.
Thank you, Dr. Kelly. Dr. White.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a couple of things.
Yes, sir.
I would like to express congratulations to Choctawhatchee's band, who earned straight superiors at their music performance assessment. And congratulations to Deegan Kilpatrick for finishing 9th place in the wrestling state championships. Also, congratulations to the Meg's Wildcat Band and their band director, Ms. Torty, for their superior rating also at the music performance assessment. And then finally, that Kenwood Elementary will be having a garden work day at the school on Saturday from 8 to 12. And if you need another date event, there's another one. Thank you.
We are helping your social
Looks like,
life.
yeah.
Keeping you busy.
All right. Ms. Ivanchek.
Yes, thank you. Well, a couple of things. One, also want to congratulate, I know all our choral and band groups did fantastic. There's not one that we can't congratulate, because they all did so well. So that's exciting, and I did get to see a couple of those performances. And then tonight, I know some of you will be in Niceville, but Miss Tucker and I are going to be down in the town of Cinco Bayou, because we have 23 students, speaking of Arts Month, who are going to be receiving a check from the Okaloosa Public Arts Foundation. They've created banners that are going to be displayed. I can't wait to see what they've come up with. And they're actually getting paid to do this, so we're going to be down there with those students tonight, seeing them. I'm excited about that, because this is a new project. I know the Okaloosa Public Arts Foundation has supported our art programs for many, many years, but this is a new part of what they're doing. So I'll be down there, and I'm excited about that. Also, last week, I got to go with some of the Hope Squad, but I also got into Read Across America Week, and and turned into my little alter ego of the Cat in the Hat, and was able to have the cat show up at both the Florosa Family Literacy Night on Thursday night, and had a command performance on Friday morning when I led the character parade at Baker School. So it was a lot of fun. It's great to see those little faces light up doing that. So it was a lot of fun, and I appreciate both of those schools inviting me out to do that. And then on a little bit more serious note, looking at the calendar, I bet you, Mr. Chambers, you probably don't remember this specific incident, but it has been almost 2 years to the date that I remember saying to you after a meeting, hey, have you heard this thing about a virus? And you said, yeah, we've gotten some information, and I'm waiting for the State Department to send us more. That was on a Monday night. It happened to be the week that we were getting out for spring break, and we actually released that Thursday, didn't have it on Friday. And I said, here's the good thing. We're about to go to spring break. This whole thing, spring break in Florida solves everything, right? And you said, let's hope so, Ms. Ivanchek. Wow, did we not know? But 2 years later, here we are, and I want to say that I am proud of what our district has done to come through the pandemic. Not exactly are we declaring it over, but we are a long way away from where we've been. And also to say to my fellow board members, I couldn't work with a more wonderful group to have gone through this time, the superintendent and attorney, all of you. And it's not that I wanted to do it, but if we had to do it, I'm glad that I was here with you guys, and appreciate all that you've done, because we've faced a lot of challenges. And so we can only hope that we never have to go through anything like that again, and that we have moved past that. But what our students and teachers have been able to accomplish, because I didn't see our district as just surviving the pandemic. We got a sales tax passed. We have moved forward. And that's, if you just hold your own in something like that, I think you're doing good. But we've thrived, and I think that says a lot about the people and the professionals we have in our district. So just wanted to make that point today. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Goes back to teamwork, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
Ms. Gardner?
I have more exciting news coming out of the high schools. We have a state champion with Cedric Farrow. I think in the next couple of weeks, maybe the next meeting, we'll be able to recognize Cedric. Also, the Fort Walton Beach High School Stars competed against the very best in the nationals and placed third. And also on game day competition, they were fourth in the nation for large varsity game. And also, I was very proud of this, again, Fort Walton Beach High School alumni, is that the FHSA, Florida High Schools Athletic Association, they recognize the Fort Walton Beach with the Sunshine State Spirit. There's a lot of S's, sunshine, a lot of S's and all that. The award for sportsmanship and for school spirit. And I can say, going to some of those different events, of course, we love when they win, but also just when they don't, the sportsmanship that we see in there. And from between the players to other teams, I'm just really proud of not only our students, but all of the students that the coaches, make that a focus. Also, congratulations to Katrina Leon of Fort Walton Beach High School again. She's a National Merit finalist. Awesome. And I attended the Northwest Florida, the Maddie Kelly Art Symphony, last Thursday. And I was so impressed, because I sat there and I watched they told me there was like 900 to 1,000 4th, 5th graders in there. And being elementary, I know when you get a large group of elementary students, that can sometimes not be run the way you may want it to run. But those students, I sat back and I watched, they walked in, they were so impressive. They were dressed nicely. As soon as they walked through that door into the auditorium, they set up, but they listened, they participated, they had their little recorders, they knew exactly what to do. I was so proud of our students. They really did represent us well. And, I go back and thank you, Lisa, for organizing all that, and also for the teachers and the music teachers. Our classroom teachers right now have a lot going on with spring break, and it's hard sometimes to settle the little ones down right before spring break, and then preparing for our testing that's going to be coming up. But I couldn't be more proud of our students during that time. And cute little story, there was this little boy sitting a couple rows, and I was taking pictures, and he was so excited. He had his recorder, and every now and then he kind of played with it when he wasn't supposed to. and the teacher would look, and boy, just that teacher look, he'd sit back up, and he was so involved in what was going on with the stage, and he'd pull it up, and that teacher would look again. But just kind of took me back to those elementary days with that teacher look that was really cute. Mr. Chambers, important question for you. Did you eat any of the green eggs and ham? I know that you and Mr. Bryant were there right before I attend, and they were so appreciative, both of you being there. So I just want to know, I was offered several times, but did you?
I have to say I was tempted, but I did not.
Well, and I have to say in all honesty.
I did at Northwood,
You
so,
did it.
yes.
And I have to say in all honesty, all 3 classes I read to, they did offer, and I didn't want to take any from the students, so I passed on it also. But
Oh,
they were
that's so
talking about you being,
diplomatic.
I didn't want to take anything from the students. So, but it was a great week from Hope Squad and Green Eggs and Ham, and I looked at all the different activities going on in the schools, and it was just, again, proud to be part of the school district. So, great things going on. I believe it.
Totally agree. Thank you, Ms. Gardner. And I'll just finish up. And Ms. Tucker, I see you're out there, and you've already been acknowledged several times, but I did enjoy your company yesterday at the convention center down on the island. And as Ms. Gardner said, I think we were both impressed with how orderly and how the teachers, everybody conducted themselves. But I know we were sitting beside each other, and all those kids had to get that recorder on the A note, but there was always that one that did not have the A note. And out of how many students that were in there, probably about 1,000. Wouldn't you think there was about close to 1,000? You heard that one. So, but it was, like I said earlier, just to see their faces, just so exciting. And we must thank Sinfona Gulf Coast for doing this, and I know this is the first time they've done it in a couple of years, and it's just so exciting to see their passion to bring it back to students. Because I was talking to Mr. Dunn yesterday, who was speaking at our Rotary Club, and I said that music is something that will stay with you forever. And I'm so happy that we put an emphasis on arts in our school district, that we are creating and giving opportunities to students. Because I did ask you, I wonder how many of those people that were in Sinfona actually are a product of Okaloosa County Schools, and I'm sure there's quite a few that were on stage. So thank you for all that you do, and it was really great to see. As a matter of fact, I was sitting by the Baker, took up half of the auditorium, I think. I was wondering who was at school at Baker yesterday, because they were all there.
Well, Mr. Bryant, I'm sorry to interrupt, but sometimes this could be the only opportunity some of these children have, and for us to be able to expose them and show them what's out there is.
And I look at it as an opportunity to retain those kids to complete high school. It gives them an opportunity to find something that's a passion for them. If that gives them the passion to continue on with their education, I think it's a win-win. So, and at the end of the day, our job is to educate them and graduate them. And if we can put an instrument in their hand and let them flourish that way too, that's a plus. So, but Mr. Chambers, I do have one little request. Regarding focus. So we've already done the training with the registrars. So like anything that we're putting out that is the magnitude that it is, I would just ask if we would make sure we go back to the registrars and just ask them one more time, how is everything going, just to make sure, because we all know that when we put something out there, we do the training, not everybody's always going to ask, or they're going to come to us and say, oh, I'm overwhelmed. So I want to make sure we give them, because they're the front line, they're the ones that are starting it. So if we can just go back and ask, just send out an email or something just to say, hey, if there's anything that we need to help you with, let's make sure we help you, because we want this to roll out flawlessly. So
Absolutely.
all right. So 16.1 is the 2-minute version of public comment, and I'll go around the room. Dr. Hale, Ms. Lightbourne, Mr. Horton, Ms. Perry. All right, this meeting's adjourned.